Back in the 90s, Capcom made some great games for Disney. From NES games like DuckTales or Rescue Rangers, all the way to Super Nintendo games like Mickey's Magical Quest and Aladdin, Capcom and Disney were a match made in heaven as far as licensed games go. A lot of those NES and SNES games made their way onto Nintendo's handheld systems at some point, but the game I want to talk about today was a Game Boy exclusive called Mickey's Dangerous Chase. Mickey's Dangerous Chase is interesting because it plays a lot like Rescue Rangers on the NES, but Rescue Rangers is one of the only Disney-Capcom collaborations that never got ported to the Game Boy. The game stars Mickey, obviously, but you can play as Minnie if you want. Both of them play identically, so there's no benefit to playing as one over the other. It's all just a matter of preference. The game itself is pretty standard platforming. Run, jump, and keep going to the right. Tried and true platforming the way Mario intended it. You do get one other skill though. You can pick up boxes and throw them, the exact same way as you do in Rescue Rangers. You just walk up to the side of a box and press B. Unlike Rescue Rangers though, you can't hide inside the box, it can only be thrown. About every 3 levels or so, the game mixes it up a bit with some new gameplay. For example, in the 3rd stage, you get to drive a speedboat, or in the 6th stage, you get to fly using balloons. This helps to keep the game fresh and interesting. Unfortunately, this also replaces any type of bosses, and I think that's the game's biggest weakness. The only boss you fight in the whole game is Pete, and he's at the very end. Now, while the gameplay and controls in this game are very similar to Rescue Rangers on the NES, I do think that it's quite a bit harder than that game, despite the lack of bosses. Some of that is because of really great old-fashioned platforming, but some of it is because of bad level design, like falling into a pit of spikes you can't see, or picking the wrong path when scaling a building, which can make the game more frustrating than it needs to be. That being said, the annoyances are minimal, and with unlimited continues, you can beat this game with a little practice. I just find it a bit strange that a Mickey Mouse branded game would be so difficult, since at the time, it was probably aimed almost exclusively at kids. Compared to most of Capcom's other games of the time, the music in Mickey's Dangerous Chase is pretty bland and none of it is particularly memorable. I guess most of the other Disney licenses had at least a theme song to fall back on, but the DuckTales and Mega Man games of the same era are vastly superior in the music area. Comparisons aside though, the music standalone is very forgettable and unlikely to be on anyone's playlist anytime soon. Overall, I think this game is not necessarily the strongest Disney-Capcom collaboration, but as a platformer on the Game Boy, it's definitely above average and worth checking out. It may not be the best out there, but it has smooth scrolling and great controls, which are 2 things that many Game Boy platformers struggle with. Add to that a strong license, and you have yourself a pretty solid platformer. I'll see you next time on
Game